I am a huge fan of British television presenter, writer and producer Charlie Brooker. He's probably best known globally these days as the creator and writer of the anthology series Black Mirror, which got picked up by Netflix in 2016. But in Britain, he has put out countless fantastic and hilarious TV shows over the years, some of which I have no doubt have aired in other countries too. These include his various Wipe series and specials, Dead Set, A Touch of Cloth, and the various Cunk shows. He was also a writer on an episode of one of my favorite comedy shows of all time, BrassEye, specifically the infamous 2001 special. I've been following his work for over 20 years now and consider myself a big fan. I think the guy is fantastic and very, very funny, whether he's in front of the camera or somewhere behind it. Charlie Brooker has also always been big into his gaming and wrote for several UK gaming publications during the late 90s and early 2000s. But honestly, I'd completely forgotten about this until recently, when I was digging around in my dark, dirty, probably haunted attic, looking for some old Sonic stuff for content on this channel. While doing this, I stumbled across my collection of UK Official Dreamcast magazines. And obviously, as someone who is easily distracted, I ended up flopping open issue 0 of ODM and noticing that the Sonic Adventure review within its pages was written by none other than Mr. Charlie Brooker himself. So for this video, I thought it would be fun to wind the clock back to 1999 and check out Charlie Brooker's thoughts on Sonic Adventure from that time. By the way, I obviously won't be attempting to deliver this review in his style, as that would be cringy as fuck. Also, I haven't read it since 1999, so I'm going into this blindly with anyone watching this video. Anyway, let's get into it. Sonic Adventure. Now there's a good name for a band. It also happens to be the name of this game, this Dreamcast showpiece, in which Sega's spiny mascot makes a triumphant return to the gaming stage. Real-life hedgehogs are well known for carrying fleas and lying disc flat in the middle of the road with their intestines crushed into the tarmac. But Sonic is a tad more glamorous than that. For one thing, he's a vividly navy blue hedgehog who got his name by breaking the sound barrier on foot. And if that isn't enough, he also wears gloves, has bulging cartoon eyes, and can talk. In fact, all things considered, he bears about as much relation to a genuine hedgehog as a monkey does to the moon. Sonic's favorite hobby is running. And we mean really running. He runs way fast. He runs like a startled murderer. Phone Sonic and invite him round your house for a spot of civilized afternoon tea, and he'd be ringing the doorbell before you'd had a chance to hang up and tidy away all the pornography you'd been secretly thumbing through that morning. Fucking hell. It follows that since speed is central to Sonic's character, it's equally important to the games he stars in. Most platform games require you to inch your way along, stuttering through each level, ponderously timing and judging every other move, in the nervous manner of a high school virgin at an 8-way pool hall gangbang. Sonic games, on the other hand, invite you to toss caution to the wind and rip through the stages like a Hell's Angel at midnight. The first game, Sonic the Hedgehog, was fast. Sonic Adventure is about 1 billion times faster. It's the fastest video game ever, and one of the most visually spectacular to boot. Once Sonic really gets into his stride, the game pisses a string of high-color, high-res, high-energy images into your face and eyes with such unrelenting haste, your brain won't be able to cope with all the information it's expected to process. It'll shrivel, whimpering to the back of your skull, while your fingers dance lovingly around the joypad, tapping out a push-button tango. Ever watched a dog sitting in the back of a speeding car on a hot summer's day, head sticking out the window, tongue flapping madly in the wind, its face a caricature of dumb, grateful exhilaration? Well, if you like good graphics, you'll be pulling expressions like that. One day, all games will look this good. Right now, only this does. Welcome to the pioneering days of DC. This game isn't called Sonic Adventure for nothing. There's a distinct narrative flowing through the game. The story runs as follows. Dr. Robotnik, the rotund, four-eyed, slap-headed supervillain of yore, has made friends with a monster known as Chaos. Chaos is made entirely from water, which presumably comes in handy whenever he fancies a pot noodle. Anyway, in order to transform Chaos from an antisocial drip into a super powerful beast from heck itself, Dr. Robotnik needs to locate the 7 Chaos Emeralds, which are scattered throughout the world. Once Chaos has been transformed, Robotnik intends to turn planet Earth into a dark ball of sickness, slaughtering dissidents, oppressing the masses, and reinforcing the ban on Sunday trading. Sonic, naturally, intends to stop him. Okay, so as plots go, it's down there with the likes of Best of the Best 4, but there is more to this than meets the eye. We'll explain why later. First, we'll tackle the bulk of the gameplay itself. Sonic's world is split into 2 distinct regions, hubs and action stages. The hub sections are sprawling exploratory areas in which Sonic wanders around chatting to people, uncovering the occasional secret, and most important of all, gaining access to the action stages. Several different stages are linked from the same hub, but you can't just visit them in any order you like. Not at first, anyway. They have to be unlocked one by one, usually by solving a simple puzzle. The exploratory hub segments are leisurely and relaxed. The action stages are anything but. Sega have taken familiar Sonic staples, collecting rings, rolling around in a ball, jumping around and bashing enemies on the head, and dragged them kicking and screaming into the 3rd dimension. Whereas in the famous 2D platform game Sonic was viewed side-on, in Sonic Adventure we're given a roving camera view, which by and large sticks behind our hero as he hurtles along. You steer him around using the joypad's analog stick. Even to anyone accustomed to the similar control method employed by Mario 64, this takes some getting used to, particularly when Sonic's cruising at top speed. The level design might not be to everyone's taste. Generally speaking, the levels resemble a cross between a platform game and an insane thematic race course, and therefore there's often as much running as jumping involved. Furthermore, every past Sonic title has included lengthy hands-off segments during which Sonic gets thrown, spun, or fired around his surroundings without any input from you whatsoever, and Sonic Adventure is no exception. Hop on a spring, for instance, and you find yourself rebounding around the scenery pinball style for an absolute age before coming to a rest on the next section of track. There are also several showstopper segments. A good example occurs in the first stage, as Sonic is pursued by a gigantic whale, during which the interaction is reduced to a minimum while the camera pans around to show something spectacular happening. The majority of players will be too busy gasping in awe to worry about this. Hardcore gamers might feel a little shortchanged. At which point it's worth remembering that the Sonic games have never been aimed at the sniffy hardcore niche. This game has been designed to garner mass market acceptance, and therefore the difficulty level is low and the spectacle level is high. If you're too damn snooty to deal with that, go play Magic the Gathering with your fat, pus-faced pals while the rest of us have some fun, okay? As he plows through his adventure, Sonic occasionally hooks up with a few of his old buddies. Tails the Fox, aka Miles Per Hour, which is a terrible pun, is there, as is Knuckles the Echidna. Generally they arrive to prop up a few of the game's impressive cutscenes, most of which are rendered with the game's own engine, since it's proficient enough to produce eye-popping cinemas, as the Yanks like to call them, without breaking a sweat. But Sonic's companions aren't mere window dressing. You can play through the game as them too, and that doesn't just mean the same game with a different graphic for the lead character. Each of the supporting cast comes complete with their own unique characteristics. Tails, for example, can fly, while Amy, the token female, runs around bashing people with a massive hammer. They also tackle the stages in a different order, and with a set of totally different objectives too. Playing from beginning to end with, say, Knuckles, takes about half as much time as it would with Sonic, but it's just as much fun, and more importantly, it's sufficiently different to qualify as a separate minigame in its own right. A lot of the fun is derived from seeing how these supporting stages fit into the overall story. Remember how in Pulp Fiction you'd sometimes watch a familiar scene, but from the point of view of a different character? Well, Sonic Adventure is a bit like that, except no one takes a heroin overdose, or gets their head blown off in the back of a car, and there's no Uma Thurman, but then you can't have everything. So far this has been nothing but an outpouring of cloying, undiluted praise, the likes of which would have Sega running around rubbing their palms together and shouting ka-ching. Well, now it's time to get picky and serious, and unfortunately Sonic Adventure has a few factors to get picky and serious about. So stop whooping and sit down. The original Japanese version of the game came out last year and looked a little as though it had been rushed out in time for Christmas. Amid all the glitter and gloss lurked a few ugly and unwelcome errors, standing out like pubic hairs on a meringue. And sadly, these problems remain in the European release. Luckily, most of the glitches are merely cosmetic. The disconcerting way Sonic judders like an epileptic on fast forward when he runs into a wall being a case in point. But several are decidedly more grievous. First, there's the camera, which sometimes gets stuck behind a piece of scenery or against a wall, making it hard to see where you're going. You can shift the viewpoint manually, but that isn't the point. You shouldn't have to. This problem ruins an otherwise eye-popping snowboarding stage. Worse still, the collision detection occasionally fails, sending Sonic tumbling through ostensibly solid barriers or walls, often at the expense of a life. Infuriating bugs, yes, but fortunately they're infrequent too. They don't occur with enough regularity to spoil your enjoyment of the game. Still, it's a crying shame Sega didn't see fit to iron them out. So then, is Sonic Adventure the killer app Dreamcast needs to make a big gain in the next round of the console war? In a word, yes. It's fast, it's furious, it's a lot of fun, and it's the best looking video game we've ever seen. It may not be an epoch-shattering giant leap forward for gaming kind, but as we've already mentioned, it won't be to everybody's taste. Die-hard gamers are likely to rip through it within a few days, although there is plenty to go back for. Overall though, it rocks bells. If you're looking for a slice of state-of-the-art, visually stunning entertainment, you've found it. Welcome back, Sonic, you big-eyed, mangy fleabag you. So his verdict is a masterpiece with a few minor flaws, with uppers being blindingly fast, awesome graphics with lots to discover, and downers being some problems with glitching and camera positioning. An overall score of 9 out of 10. There's also a few other pieces here, such as an interview with the producer of the PAL version. I'll leave that on screen if you want to read it. There's also a piece about the VMU and the Chow minigame on that. Also this somewhat scathing part on Sonic Adventure's music. Then lastly we get a character roundup, which I'll put on screen now, and also this section talking about the 60Hz option that the Dreamcast introduced. Prior to this, UK games ran slower and with borders at 50Hz, and Sonic Adventure was the first or one of the first console games that allowed you to play in 60Hz on a PAL system. Anyway, so there we have it. Charlie Brooker's thoughts on Sonic Adventure 1 from way back in 1999. 24 years ago at the time of recording. A 9 out of 10. It's a score I certainly agreed with at the time. I love Sonic Adventure. Of course, times have moved on, and the game is definitely showing its age in many ways now. And we also have to factor in that he was writing for an official Dreamcast magazine, about their flagship launch game in the very first issue, nonetheless. Would you have agreed with this review back then? Maybe you still agree with it now. How do you feel Sonic Adventure has held up over the years? Let me know in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button as it helps me out a lot. And if you're new here, check out some of my other content and consider subscribing for frequent, high-quality Sonic and Sega videos. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.